Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. We'd like to move quickly through the call, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people, you have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for any of these other currencies. We'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The most relevant piece of information, in our opinion, is the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe, as we have for a number of months now, that the reinstitution of the dinar will occur in January of 2020. There's a number of reasons for that, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. If you listened to last week's call, I had enumerated a number of things that were being done in order to ensure the reinstitution of the dinar. That continues this week. As a matter of fact, the CBI has announced that there will shortly be the release of, to the general public, of the lower dinars and the coinage. This also points to January of 2020 because they have stated in the past and have reiterated again that they want the lower dinars and the coinage in general circulation for approximately 3 months prior to the reinstitution. So the release of the lower dinars and the coinage in September means that 3 months down the road, we're looking at January of 2020. All countries with viable currencies have two basic characteristics. One, there are lower denominations in coinage and circulation for the general public. And second, to the extent that they do have the rather larger denominations, they're used almost exclusively for bank-to-bank transactions and international contracting. The United States is no different. Those of you that are old enough to remember know that at one time there was circulated for the general public in the United States $500 and $1,000 notes. Excuse me. Those notes continue to exist, but they're not used in the general circulation, but once again, primarily for bank-to-bank transactions. Now, Parliament has announced that in their next session, they will be releasing for public consumption the results of the investigation into the corrupt currency auctions. Now, this, in my opinion, is a de facto acknowledgement that they will be implementing the accountability and justice law. Excuse me again. There'd be no reason for them to release the results of the investigation unless there were going to be consequences for the laws broken and those that have actually broken those laws. Parliament is also pushing for final passage of the Article 140 of the Constitution and the oil and gas law. Those laws have been tinkered with for years, and they want to get the final language correct because, once again, they're lining up everything, in our opinion, for a reinstitution in January. One last point. Maliki and his cohorts have again reared their ugly head, and they are attempting to push for the removal of all U.S. forces in Iraq. Now, why would they be doing that? The reason, in my opinion, is that they fear the implementation of the accountability and justice law, and they want the influence of Iran in country to push back on that. And the only way to accomplish that, once again, would be the removal of U.S. forces. So again, everything is pointing to the reinstitution of the dinar in January of 2020. Now, theoretically, could it happen at any time? Yes, that's a possibility, but it's unlikely. They want to get all of these other issues taken care of. And again, the release of the coinage scheduled for mid-September is very critical, because the release of that coinage and the expense to the nation to mint and then release that coinage makes no sense unless they were going to reinstitute and substantially increase the value of the dinar in country. Now, since January 2020 looks like the most reasonable date for the reinstitution of the dinar, that means people have some time to do a couple of things. One is to purchase additional currency. And those of you that believe that the dinar will revalue and that January 2020 looks like a very viable date should take advantage of that by purchasing additional currency. I certainly know I'm going to be doing that. Second, it gives those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order time to do so. Now, most individuals don't really know what I mean by that, because most individuals have frankly not been extremely wealthy individuals and do not understand the legal and financial implications of acquiring overnight wealth. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put in place a turnkey program to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. The post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your package of pre-RV asset protection trusts. There are a number of entities out there that people utilize to establish some form of asset protection. Some individuals establish business structures like LLCs and sub-S corporations. They both provide some privacy and some asset protection. They primarily divide business assets from personal assets. But many courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations owned in the majority by one individual or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So that means that these entities are really inappropriate for our needs. Many individuals have established something called a revocable trust. A revocable trust will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and it can substantially reduce, in some cases, the exposure to the federal estate tax. But revocable trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're going to be inappropriate for our purposes as well. Individuals have also established single irrevocable trusts. Now, irrevocable trusts do provide privacy and asset protection, but the inherent weakness in a single irrevocable trust is that all of your assets are housed in that one trust. So if any asset within that trust should get involved in any form of civil litigation, that will necessarily drag all of the other assets and your entire net worth into that litigation, because all of those assets are owned by the same entity. The best single form of bulletproof asset protection is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts. And Trusts Unlimited has created such a package. And the reason we've created this package is because it provides the following protection. First, by establishing this trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity, because all assets held within our trust package are sealed meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit will be time-consuming. It will be frustrating in that it's come along at the time of the revaluation and you're going to be involved in other decisions. And frankly, such an audit, a 6-year audit, would cost you more than an asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your trust is in place and your currencies have been assigned to that trust, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this taxable event were to occur within a trust. And second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included within this package is a special gift subtrust. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to their revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem even giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through our exclusive gift subtrust. By gifting to them through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this gift subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift these individuals the exact dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through the trust, you will have complete control of the post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. I apologize again for this cough. I don't know where this began. Just recently I started coughing. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be passed on to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely avoidable. How? Scenario number 2. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The 5th reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once the prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth from the revaluation. This asset protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it works. Once again, I'll use the same example. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000, transferred the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalued for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this important from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say you're driving one of your new cars one day. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Now, why are they protected? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or separate legal persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal person. So this package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these asset protection benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one benefit here. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our existing clients have already expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is from the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly established entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there to assist you. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get a substantial amount of your money out of the banks and it work in other areas. Lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-backed Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned pre-RV currencies, and then your financial accounts like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift sub-trust that can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold financial assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. This package was the simplification of a rather sophisticated package of trust that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with dinarians, we knew that that price tag was just going to be unaffordable for many. So by basically simplifying and back-end loading this trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place and their affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your trust in place and your affairs in order for all of the reasons that we've stated here. Now we're going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. Before we do, again, I'd like to thank you for listening to the call. I suggest that newer callers have a pen and paper handy. I want to give you a little bit of information about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to help you, and at the very least, at least getting our initial informative package. You're under no obligation by doing so. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of your package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, our thanks for taking the time to listen to this call. We're going to the Q&A. Please have a pen and paper handy if you'd like to contact us. We'll be happy to send you our initial package. You're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever by receiving the package, even though it does include everything you need if you should decide to proceed and establish a trust. You can review the information. There's a lot of information about us, about trust, about the coinage and the revaluation. You can call us or send us an email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A. When I do, 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls. Existing clients can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. I still have about a half a dozen phone calls to return from individuals that have contacted us over the last couple of days. I was away for the holiday, the Labor Day holiday, but we will be making those calls this afternoon. Rule number 2, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to open up right now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give our new callers our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you'll dial for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but once the reinstitution of the Iraqi Dinar occurs, emails may go out as often as weekly. We have a few callers here in the queue. Our first caller is area code 703. That's 703. Go ahead.
Hi, yes. My name is, actually, I'm a first-time caller, and I live in the state of Virginia. But I was wondering, in applying for this Trust Unlimited, how would I know that it applies to the laws and requirements of the state of Virginia?
Okay. Our trust package is a common law, not a statutory trust, meaning that as a common law trust, it's good in all 50 states.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
And
well,
as a matter of fact, not only do we have clients in most, if not all states, we have clients in several dozen countries as well with this trust package.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, interesting then. Yeah, well, I will be getting additional information from you to read up on it. And,
I have your phone number. I have your phone number on the screen. If you don't mind, I'll be happy to give you a call after I get off of this conference call. And if you want to give me your email address, I'll be happy to send you our initial package.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Okay, thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now.
Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma City. I
Yes,
have
sir.
some questions about the other relevant currencies. You know, we have the dinar, the dong, the zim, the rial, so on and so forth. In keeping tabs on sort of the progress of what's happening with those other currencies, it only seems to me as if information about the dinar is relevant in that the country is taking those steps such as coinage and lower denominations. I hear nothing that is going on, for example, with the dong on this issue. In your opinion, does the reinstatement of the dinar trigger or indicate that there will also be activity in these other currencies, or do you think that other substantial things will have to take place in order for those countries to move to a point to move out of those, real high denominations. For example, like, my gosh, the dong has a 500,000 dong, note, things like that. It just doesn't seem like there's any information out there that is relevant to those nations doing the same thing that Iraq is doing in preparation of a reinstatement or a revaluation of their currency.
Okay. Well, first let me qualify my answer by saying I'm a holder of the dinar, the dong, the rupiah, and the zim. In my view, the dinar is the only one that I would classify as an investment. The other currencies I consider, in my opinion, to be speculation. For example, in Vietnam and Indonesia, those countries have been rather stable for decades, and they've been operating with their currency at this level where it is right now for decades. So to me, the only thing that would basically be a catalyst for them to increase in value substantially would be the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, but that in and of itself does not mean anything's going to happen anytime soon. With regard to the zim and the rial, I put them both in the same boat. In order for those currencies to revalue, they're going to have to be Article 8 compliant with the UN, and that article requires that they be stable politically internally and that they not be involved in the affairs of neighboring countries. And in both cases, Zimbabwe and Iran are epic failures there. So I don't anticipate either of those currencies increasing anytime soon, if at all. Again, I do not have rial, but I have all of the other currencies. They're so inexpensive to purchase. In my view, it made no sense not to possess some of it. But if I had to pick one currency to hold, it would only be the Iraqi dinar. If I had to pick one currency to dump, it would have to be the zim. And that's the best way I can explain it.
Very good. South Korea, tremendously prosperous nation, has an exchange rate that actually is very similar or mirrors those denominations that Iraq has, about 1,100, 1,200 won to the dollar versus like the dinar to the dollar. And yet you don't see a country like that moving to try to reduce the exchange rate of their currency. So it calls to mind for me that what is the impetus for nations like that or others to basically reduce the exchange rate? Because just like what China's doing, they are artificially inflating their currency so that their trade,
right,
the thing is advantageous to them. So it doesn't seem to, like for example Vietnam, it doesn't seem to make sense to me that they would reduce that exchange rate, because that means that their goods then would become more expensive and they would have less buying power overseas. No, it'd be actually just the opposite. They would have more buying power, but their goods would become more expensive to a foreign purchaser.
Yeah. First, real quick correction. You said that the Chinese had inflated their currency. They deflated their currency.
I'm sorry. You're right. I misspoke that.
Yeah. It's just I just wanted to clarify for other listeners.
Okay.
One of the things you'll hear Trump say when he keeps saying, "I want an equal playing field," I want an equal playing field. when he's talking about currencies, what he's really saying is that we want to go to Basel III and at some point 4 and 5 compliance, because that will negate the country's ability to artificially deflate their currency in order to capture the international market for the trade of goods and services.
Right.
When you talk about South Korea and Vietnam, in a sense, they're sort of closed societies. They, especially Vietnam, they seem to function without necessarily involving themselves heavily in international trade along with other countries. Now, I don't know whether that's because the Western nations are so heavily involved in trade, but for whatever reason, Vietnam, for example, has been operating for, 30 or 40 years with this devalued currency, and they are a relatively wealthy nation. They also have a few things going for them. They have an indigenous plant that is a very good sugar substitute. A couple of years ago, they found massive oil reserves off the north shore of North Korea. So there's all kinds of long-term potential for Vietnam. The issue is, will the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar finally trigger an increase in value? The biggest issue with Iraq, to me, is all of the neighboring countries. Their dinar are worth about $3, but Iraq has more known natural resources than all of those countries combined. So it's almost impossible for that country's currency not to increase substantially in value with Basel III compliance. Not every country is trying to, cooperate with moving to Basel III compliance. So obviously there's to some extent a closed society, and they tend to be some of the Far Eastern Oriental nations. I don't know why. It just is.
Well, I have friends and family, myself included, that hold dong, and I just can't see the benefit of not exchanging that currently for additional dinar, and then if we wanted to after the fact repurchase. But there, to hold this for another 5 to 10 years doesn't seem to be a wise financial move. And like you said, an investment versus a speculation.
Right. I'm watching the dinar. I've got some people I'm talking to that I have faith in. I'm going to talk to them by November 1st. If it looks as though what I'm talking about today, if it looks as though there's going to be a reinstitution in January, I'm literally going to sell all my other currencies, purchase some more dinar. And then out of it altogether.
And then with the resources, you could replenish if you wanted to. But at that point, I think that I would sort of button down the hatches and say sayonara to society anyway, and go.
Here's what I think. Whether you sell your other currencies or not, what I suspect is going to happen is when we go to, let's say the dinar revalued, when we go to the banks, what might happen is we might sign a document stating that if we used any of that money to purchase any other pre-valued currencies, we're going to be subject to a clawback. I'm not saying that will happen, but that's an example of what can happen. That's one of the reasons they shut down the reserve companies, because they didn't want people to have 5 trillion dong. They just didn't want to see that kind of. They felt it was an abuse of basically the move to Basel III compliance. Most people don't know that there's a Basel I, a Basel II. This is where at the phase Basel III. It just so happens that the situation with Iraq coincided with the transition to Basel III, but there's also a Basel IV and a Basel V. So there's a lot. We're looking at it from the prism of we hold these currencies and we want them to revalue, but in the scheme of things, it's really actually a small part of the total global financial and currency, outlook. So, but again, I'll be if the dinar is the only one that goes, I'm in good shape. I'm not worried.
So one thing of clarification: can you use the term clawback? Can you explain that? I don't know that term. What does that mean?
I'll give you an example. You have 10 million dinar. You go to the bank and you exchange your dinar, and you get $30 million. They go $3 for each dinar. You have $30 million.
Okay.
Among the paperwork that you will sign, I don't know that there'll be an NDA. I mean, that's absurd. I've always thought the only purpose there'd be for an NDA would be if you're being paid prematurely, you're getting some outrageous contract rate. And since I believe none of those things have occurred, I don't think there'll be an NDA. But basically what the clawback would say is if you made $30 million on the exchange of your dinar, and then you made $10 million on the exchange of dong that you purchased with the profit from the dinar, they're going to claw that $10 million back.
Oh, I got you.
They're not going to let us profit by purchasing pre-RV currencies with profits from the exchange of the dinar. Huh. Now, you know people, they can't help themselves. They're going to try to get squirrely about it. They're going to pull their money. They're going to go to another bank. They're going to go to another country. They're going to try to do it, and they may or may not get away with it. But why do that? I mean, why risk that? I mean, if you went from, being Joe Lunchbox to a guy who's completely and totally financially independent. Why would you screw with that? I mean, greed is a very damaging, to people. That's why so many people that become overnight millionaires lose it, because they're not satisfied.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that you've helped me make up my mind about at least holding some of the other currencies for some time after, or at least pre-reval for the dinar, because at some point it doesn't make financial sense to hold on to those if there's not going to be anything that is immediately coincides with the dinar. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, you know the old saying, a bird in the hand. It's beginning to look like the dinar is the bird in the hand,
Oh, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay,
Bye-bye.
Take care, Doug. Bye-bye. All right, our next caller is area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call, and this is Harold. And
Yes,
we've been talking about the dinar. I'd like to move the conversation back to the trust itself. You mentioned that there are ways to lose control. One way to lose control is you've got your older children who think you don't get around so good anymore, and you're taking a lot of medicines and things, and there's a tendency in families to finally break down and put the parents in a home of some sort. And the qualifications for going into a home is the patient has to lose all of their assets, their home. They have to give up their home, their cars. They can't own anything. Does this trust address any of those issues that would protect a person like myself that's at age 68?
Okay. All right. First of all, as the settlor creator of the trust, you can remove the trustee at any time for any reason or no reason. Second, one of the reasons we utilize the Wyoming statutes is because one of the documents that the trustee will sign is a document naming you as their advisor. Now, if you get to the point where you are incompetent, the trustee would still have to operate under the terms of the trust, or they risk not only civil but criminal penalties. So if you set up, and most of our clients set up trusts with children, I would sit down and have a very serious conversation with them. And as a matter of fact, at our seminar, one of the things we'll be discussing are statutory issues, namely writing a will, powers of attorney, medical directives, and all of that. So these issues will be addressed, at least indirectly, at our seminar as well. But unfortunately, if we have children that are going to take liberties beyond what they should, I mean, the only protection from that, I guess, is to know who you're dealing with and to try to make it clear. You can even have, I would imagine, supplementary documents and contracts that you can write saying the do's and do nots that will affect whether a person can be trustee. In other words, if you have a contract saying, as trustee, you can and you cannot do the following, even if you're incompetent, if that contract was written while you were competent, that trustee can be removed for cause. That's a little more complicated, and it's not subject we'd like to get into, but there are things you can do if that's a concern. Another thing we will discuss is after the revaluation, naming a second active trustee. So if one trustee is misbehaving, hopefully the other trustee will bring him back online.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your thoughts on that, and it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks very much for your call.
Appreciate you.
Okay, bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 931. That's 931.
Jim, how are you?
Is this Manny?
This is Manny. How are you?
I recognize the voice. How you doing, sir?
Great. I have a couple of questions. If I may interject and maybe help some of the people out there. Would it be advisable, in your opinion, that we start seeking out maybe banks with Delarue machines already in place, and maybe go into the bank and just talk to someone that maybe would even have, if you had to pay for it, check out a few of your dinars, especially if you bought them from different vendors in the past, to see if they are legitimate, because some of them may not be real dinars and some of them may be real dinars. Would that be an advisable thing to do? And if you can't do that, can someone else, can someone tell the rest of the group where they can locate those dinar machines so we can go check them out?
The only way that of course, theoretically, banks that do international currency transactions and they have, multiple currency accounts will have Delarue machines available. Certainly, they shouldn't have a problem unless it's a bank where you don't have an account, and then the bank will say, well, this is reserved only for someone that has an account at our bank. So that's some of the nonsense you have to put up with. But it's certainly not a bad idea to do that. I haven't done it myself, and I'm sitting here on a pile of currency. I will tell you this: if any of the purveyors that you purchase currency from, it turns out it's counterfeit, not that it's going to help you any, but those people are going to be going to jail for a very long time if that's in fact what's happened. But, certainly you can check it out. My experience and our experience at Trusts Unlimited is the banks are uncooperative up until the point where these, for example, a lot of banks say, oh, we don't deal with the dinar, it's not an active currency or something like that. And then the day it reinstitutes, then all of a sudden, you're gold to them. So it's unfortunate it's that way. I've basically said to people, don't even bother with the banks till the reinstitution happens, because they're just not interested. But
yeah,
if you can find a bank with a Delarue machine that'll just confirm the validity of the currency, certainly, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, because some of these currency brokers are no longer in business. And
that's right.
You may not even know until the day of the exchange that, hey, you've got $1 million or $500,000 or whatever the case may be of counterfeit currency.
Right.
Because I know that there was a lot of...
like I said, the only benefit, the only thing that could come out of that is those people could end up in jail, but that doesn't help you.
Yeah, if you can find them, because they're out of business 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
The other question I have, and that may be food for thought for the listeners. The other question I have, if I can go back to the trust that I have with you guys, if you have a trustee and you use the Social Security number of that trustee to set up with the government with that person's or whoever person's Social Security number, and you right now you fire or you get another trustee, do you have to get another Social Security and reset that up? Or no,
either the settlor or the trustee can go to the IRS.gov to get the EIN number for the trust. Mm-hmm. If you release that trustee and bring out another trustee, it doesn't matter, because the only issue is, did you have an EIN number for it? As long as that EIN number exists for that trust, it doesn't matter whether you have a different trustee or not.
Okay, that's good to know that, because I wasn't sure between the time that I got my trust and the time that it actually becomes enforced. Do I need to do anything about that?
If your trust is in force and you have an EIN number, you can name a second trustee if you want. You can replace the existing trustee. You can do whatever you want.
Without having to change that number again?
No. The number applies to the trust, not when it was applied for.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you kindly for taking my call there, Jim, and I will go back to re-listen to this call because I know I got in late on the call. Thank you kindly. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Sure. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Gladys from Michigan.
Yes.
I have a trust, and when it comes to exchange time, can I exchange or do my trustee have to do it?
you will both go into the bank. Both the settlor and the trustee need to be present for the exchange.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was quick.
Yes, it was.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Uh-huh. All right.
Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. That's got to be Les.
Hey, Jim, it's Les. Thanks again for that introduction. I'm doing okay.
Sure.
How about yourself?
I've got, for some reason, I've got a cough that I can't get rid of. Other than that, I'm fine. I think it's from all the talking I've been doing.
Almost. And then you got water. I bet you have none sitting right beside you, do you?
I'm drinking it right now.
Okay. All right. Now, you were just talking about getting rid of some currency to go get more dinar. If we go into January with this RV, waiting for the RV, I wouldn't sell my currency waiting because it's already paid for. And if you sell it back now, and it's just my opinion, if you sell it back now, you're going to get less than what you actually paid out already for it. Why not just hold it off a couple more months?
Well, you might be right. Well, the reason you would do it is if you are betting on the dinar and not the other currencies. If I actually believed that the dinar was going to go in January and the other currencies might not go for years, I'll sell it at a 50% loss because it cost me virtually nothing in order to purchase dinar, and then I can invest those dinar for 3 or 4 years. I'm going to make my money back 100-fold by doing that.
Well, of course, but I remember some years ago that line of thinking was out there because no one knew how soon each currency was going to go after the other. But because they didn't want people to go and exchange one and then go buy a whole bunch of the other, they said, okay, we're going to put them all in the same group. They'll all be in the same bunch, and we'll get rid of them. Not get rid of them, but we'll exchange them then. Okay.
Well, like I've said, the catalyst, the dinar could theoretically be the catalyst for these other currencies to finally, increase in value, or perhaps even be Basel III compliant. But again, like any investment, like any stock portfolio, you look at what you have, and you can only make decisions for the future based on the information at hand. The information at hand for me tells me, and this is just my opinion, the Zim is a loss, the rupiah is shaky, the rial is shaky, and the dong has been trading at this level. The currency has been at this value for 30 or 40 years. So it's not that they won't increase in value, but I don't think they collectively have anything close to the leverage of the dinar. So I could lose $1 by selling my other currencies and then make $10 by using that money to purchase the dinar.
Yeah, you can, but I wouldn't do that.
Well,
only because of the news that's out right now.
Individual call. That's everyone's call.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, I'm holding off. I've got some people I'm talking to. I'm holding off till November 1st. If everything on November 1st is where we are now, I'm dumping everything else and buying dinar. But that's just me.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. Next question or next statement or next comment. Now, basil. That was a joke I had. What was that basil joke? Oh, about the spaghetti sauce. There's basil in spaghetti sauce. How about that?
Yeah, I love basil sauce. I love basil sauce.
Yeah, basil sauce.
As a matter of fact, I have a basil sauce that I make. I put on linguine. It's awesome. And I have a burnt butter that I put on linguine. I come from the restaurant business. I'm Greek. I mean, what the heck? What else would I be from?
I heard that.
So my wife has turned the kitchen over to me, and I prefer it that way.
I heard that. That means you're a better cook than she is then, huh?
I didn't say that.
Well, it's in recording. We know it wasn't you. It was me.
Yeah. Right. I plead the fifth on that.
I heard that. And lastly, now last week I made mention of something with the value that was stated that Iraq wanted to RV in country and use it for 3 months or whatever before anyone else does.
It was the lower denoms and the coinage. They want the lower denoms and the coinage in general circulation for about 3 months. They wanted to get the people used to using the currency, the hard currency, and then go to the reinstatement. So my point is they're talking about getting all this done by mid-September. If they get it done anytime in September, 3 months puts us in January.
Okay, but so the 3 months you're referring to is the 3 months that you're saying Iraq, will be able to use the currency before we can exchange?
Once the lower denoms and coinage are in circulation in country for Iraqi nationals for 3 months, then they will reinstate their currency.
Okay, so in circulation, in country, no reinstatement until after 3 months. Which means
that was the formula that they had in 2012 and 2014. They wanted the coinage and the currency, the lower denoms and the coinage in circulation in country for 3 months, and then the reinstitution. So my point is, they've announced that they believe that the current coinage will be available by mid-September. Well, 3 months puts us in mid-January.
If we go by their timetable, but their timetable has become stacked.
Well, they could change the rules that's what they've done since 2003. I'm just pointing out this is what they've said.
Right. I understand.
That's what,
But then that was
have to pick up. Yeah. Like I said, we can only make determinations today based on the information at hand. We also know that January is their new year. We also know that's when the new budget comes out. If they do not establish the rate in January for the new budget, they theoretically would have to wait another year. Well, they can't do that, in my opinion.
Well, I just heard their new year started October 1st.
That's the fiscal year, but on the calendar year is when the new budget goes into force.
Okay, the fiscal and the calendar. Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
All right. So if they have the coins and everything circulating for 3 months, they still have no RV, then the money is still useless circulating in country.
Why would they go to the expense to create all of the lower denoms and strike and mint the coinage if it's worthless? The only reason to do it is because they're going to increase the value. What good
but
is
for 3 months?
Well, that's
it's
how
the delay
long
I'm concerned with.
That's their determination. That's how long it'll take to get these individuals accustomed to using their coinage.
All right. Okay.
Remember also it's a poor country. Most people do not live in the handful of cities. Most people are way out in the boonies. And in other words, the money first has to go to the 8 regional banks, and then it slowly gets distributed from there and through the ATMs. You think there's an ATM on every corner like the United States? No. So they feel they need 3 months for all of their citizens to be regularly using the lower denoms and the coinage.
Okay. All righty.
Maybe it won't take 3 months, but that's the number they've given us. So that's the number we're rolling with.
I heard that. Well, thanks again. Say hi to the professor, and have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too.
Well, that was our last call for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. Sorry for all the coughing on my end, but for some reason I've got a frog in my throat and I can't get rid of it. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and try to schedule an emergency conference call. Again, if the things that we've discussed here today are of interest to you, I strongly suggest you contact us, get our initial no-obligation package. You can review it. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. So barring any unforeseen event between now and next Wednesday, we will be back next Wednesday afternoon, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.